Is this actually a joke? Is this a joke? Are people buying all of the gold as a joke because they know it winds me up? Who needs this much gold? It's useless. It's pointless. It's a rubbish item. Who needs it? That's so many stacks of gold blocks. What are you building? Are you building like a monument towards butter or something? What is going on? I'm perplexed. I really actually want to know who is responsible for me selling all of this gold. I've also decided I think I'm actually just going to hide some stock somewhere in the store, and that means that I technically can't be in trouble for being out of stock. Except I don't actually have any gold to hide, and my own shop is out of stock, so I can't get it from my stock. Oh my goodness, this is not going well. Oh, and that's an extra low blow. You changed my sign. I've been out of stock for like maybe 2 days. It's been like no time at all. That is completely unjustified. I hate being a successful business owner. All right, well, welcome back to Hermitcraft Season 10. This is episode something. We're off to a good start today, aren't we? Today I'm really excited because we're going to be doing some serious terraforming. I don't know what's happened to my brain. Something has flipped. I cannot wait to get started on this. We did the custom trees in the previous Hermitcraft episode. They look really great, but the ground around it, pants, boring. That is about to change. And it is going to change in the form of a montage. Yeah, I've been reading through the comments. Lots of people pointing out that my time lapses aren't actually time lapses, they're montages. But this montage actually takes place over 2 separate days. I did 2 stints of 6 hours of building up this place, which is, I think I'm quite slow. I think I'm incredibly slow. And the reason I was only able to do 2 stints of 6 hours is because, honestly, the mental fatigue that I feel after 6 hours of terraforming is like the equivalent of me doing 16 hours of redstone. I literally would like come up off the computer and be just completely zonked. I'd almost need to take a nap. Anyway, I want to talk you through some of my creative choices. So firstly, we've got things like fallen trees. That's a detail that I really wanted to add. And one thing that I noticed with a lot of the fallen trees that I've been observing in the forest is they are covered in all sorts of different types of mushrooms. You've got like bracket mushrooms and sporing mushrooms and everything like that. And that's something that I really wanted to represent. And I've done that using fence posts and trapdoors and all sorts of different buttons. You may be thinking, why aren't you actually using mushrooms? It's because they're kind of difficult to place, and I prefer the colours of the things that I've used to represent them. Next up, we've got the boulders. Now, if you watched the previous Hermitcraft episode, you will know that I'm basing this forest on Fontainebleau, which is a very famous bouldering location, and I looked at tons of boulders while I was in Font because I was climbing them, and one thing that I noticed about sandstone boulders is that contrary to what Minecraft would have you think, sandstone isn't bright yellow. It is actually quite dark, so I was making use of mud, deep slate and deep slate tiles to do that, and then just covering them in grassy, mossy blocks and trying to obscure them with leaves and things. Now, running alongside the river that we've cut into the forest and also the river that runs along the front of the forest, I thought it'd be nice to add in some flowers just to bring some colour into the place. And I've also put some bushes into the mix, and I really wanted to make sure that they didn't blend in with the treetop canopy, so I've used birch for that, which I think looks really nice. It looks dark, it looks like it's actually in the shade of the forest, which is perfect. And then I've tried my best to really think about how these bushes would be formed, so they're a little bit denser in the middle and they become a little bit fluffier on the edges, and I've also mixed in some longer grass and things. And finally, I've chucked in a bunch of dripstone spikes all throughout the forest, because if you spend time in a forest, you'll notice that actually the forest floor is all over the place. It is really knobbly, is how I would describe it. There's just things poking out of it everywhere. So the dripstone spikes kind of represent roots or fungus or little logs or little things dotting around, and I really think it helps sell that effect. That was actually a really, really fun process. So here is our little forest, and I have to say, this is a very nice place to walk around. It feels thick with detail, it feels very alive, and it has the same information density as a regular forest, if that makes sense. There's information everywhere you look, and although this would be considered a fairly busy Minecraft build by my standards, I think that's correct. Forests are busy. Now, I was actually watching a BOO video recently, and he was talking about the different levels of a build, which I quite liked, and I'm going to pinch the concept. He was saying you kind of have 3 separate levels. I think it was to do with this city over here. You've got like the skyline level, and then you've got the slightly closer in, and then you've got the actually inside the city level. Well, I'm applying that logic here. So from a distance, this place looks really cool. I like the placement of the boulders. I think, yeah, I think it's come together really nice from back here. It also looks great because you can see all the different layers and you've got lots of things stacking up, lots of things for your eye to focus on. And then as discussed, as you're walking through, it feels like you're actually in a forest, which is exactly what I wanted from this build. I am chuffed. I'm really, really happy with this. This has definitely been by far my most successful terraforming project. So let's move on to the next build, which is going to be going in this zone right here. I've kind of zoned it off, I guess. I've put a little template. This is going to be an elevator. So up on this platform here in this section is going to be our rock shop, and I think in my head I'm going to call it Boulder Bros. I just like the idea of it. Okay, what on earth has happened to Big Ron's? Why on earth is Big Ron's why is it full of diamonds? Big Ron's diamond ore for sale. What on earth? Who has done this, and why are there 2 snails in here? And why is there a private and confusing sign? I'm prepared to see some privates and be confused. Hey? There's a helicopter in here. They've put a chopper in the back of Big Ron's. And there's nothing behind these doors. That's even more confusing. This is so weird. There's no signs or anything. What have I missed? There's skulk sensors. Oh, okay, it's just for the sound. I was gonna say, I am baffled by that. That is... yeah, that was baffling. Anyway, as I was saying, there's going to be a shop up here. It's going to be the rock shop. It's going to be called Boulder Bros or something. I like the sound of that. But the Boulder Bros are going to need some way to get their rocks up onto this platform. And also, I mean, all of the residents and all of the people that have the shops on this area here currently have no way to get up here. So I guess it needs to be like a functional industrial elevator whilst also being able to transport people somewhat comfortably. I think it's time that we head into the redstone testing world. I'm actually going to do it in the world where I built the test tree, just so I can get a feel for block palettes and things. As much as I absolutely love the redstone testing world, it's very sandstony, it's very irony, it's very woolly. It will have me reverting back to my iron blocks and stone slabs in no time. Right, so here's the idea for the actual elevator itself. I want to make use of chains. I think the platform's going to be made of copper because that looks kind of cool. And I'm hoping I should just be able to use a piston feed tape to be able to switch everything out and then stop this thing before it hits the roof. That means we are actually going to need a 2-way piston feed tape for this one. Oh, by the way, I'm just doing a little bit of decorating, just so I can work out what sort of area I have to work with and also what sort of things I have to cover up. For example, up at the top here, I'm actually going to add a part to the system that moves some blocks out the way so that we don't get this ugly gap, because without those 2 sticky pistons on the side, we would constantly be able to see these, and that is not a good look. Now, one thing that I do want to try and do is I want to keep the redstone as low as possible. I don't want to go too high. In fact, I don't want to go higher than those pistons. So that does mean that I've had to use some slightly odd double piston extenders, but they seem to be working nicely. Now, you may be wondering why I'm using a hopper here. It's because I don't want to power these pistons, and if I used a redstone line, then they would. So instead, I'm powering a hopper, which the observer detects, and that is what is allowing our double piston extenders to work. And now I've added in the circuit that will retract these blocks out of the way, so if I switch on our redstone clock, you can see that those blocks move out of the way, and then our double piston extenders can do their thing. The piston feed tape is working, and then once this system switches off, the blocks get replaced. Oh, ignore what's going on over here. I haven't actually wired up this half, so hopefully you were only watching this side. Now I'm trying to think of a smart way to activate these top pistons. Again, I don't want any redstone lines, even up at this level. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to be a little bit smart here. Especially now that I've created this nice square. I don't really want to go outside of the square. I kind of want to keep this thing quite compact. Which is just, it's a disease, really. It's a disease that I have in my brain. I don't need to make it compact. I don't need to make it small. I don't even need the redstone to look nice. It can go all over the place. But I'm not gonna do that. It was working. I was just about to celebrate my success because I have actually managed to make this work, but I've realized that the pulse extender that I built in the previous clip actually goes exactly where our piston feed tape needs to go. This is something that happens often if you're building piston feed tapes. You forget that the actual feed tape itself needs to exist. But I think I might just about be able to get away with it. Yeah, if anything, this is better because it means I don't have to use note blocks, which looked a little bit weird. Right, let's activate this thing and see. Just to warn you, it's going to be a lot of noise, but this is looking good. So if we get a block that gets pushed up, it gets grabbed and pushed down. Okay, that's exciting. And then if we get a block pushed up on this side, it gets pushed across. That is ridiculous. That's embarrassing. The only reason it didn't fire that time is because we've hit the push limit down here. Trust me, it is fully working. And I'm managing to keep things within my arbitrary square. Let's see how long this lasts for before any of you smart people out there point out the redstone clock. That's temporary. Now let's move down to the bottom. And this is kind of going to be the brains of the operation. You saw that the top kind of handles whatever you throw at it. Whether the piston feed tape is going in this direction or in this direction, it can do both. It's a smart system. But down at the bottom here, this is where we decide which way the piston feed tape is going to go. And I guess... Oh, I should probably actually work out how I'm going to decide that. I guess the system it needs to know when the blocks have got to the top. So then it stops and then brings them back down to the bottom. Hadn't thought that far ahead. There are many ways we can do this. We could either count, so we could make it so that the piston feed tape fires, let's say, 7 times, or 9 times, or 10 times, and then fires 10 times back in the opposite direction. That's one way of doing things. Or we could do it almost like how we do combination locks. Put a solid block, or a transparent block, or maybe even a redstone powering block inside of the piston feed tape that then powers a part of the circuit when it moves in front of it. That's also an option. I decided to ignore that bit for the time being and just work on getting the piston feed tapes working. And oh my goodness, I have actually managed to get it going in one direction. So we have got one of the directions working. This is actually functioning, which is pretty ridiculous. It looks incredibly cool, and I'm still staying within my footprint, which is very, very exciting. What's not so fun is that this really, really doesn't work in the opposite direction. I just tried flipping it, and it's really not working. I think it's because... Do you see these downward pushing pistons, the ones that are kind of spamming up at the top there? They are firing pretty much exactly when our double piston extender is firing. So I guess that's the problem. Okay, we're going to have to do some smart circuitry then, so that the machine changes the timings of everything depending on what direction it's going in. That's fine, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Yep, that just about sums things up. Yeah, things definitely weren't fine, but finally, I have managed to get everything up and running. And I've added in all of the pulse extenders down at the bottom, which effectively counts where the elevator is going, and I've built in spam-proof protection, sort of. I mean, green is on the server, so you have to do these things when you're doing your redstone builds, but I will never underestimate how much green can spam a redstone contraption. Seriously, green, if you're watching this, please don't try. And I gotta say, as far as elevators are concerned, this thing looks awesome. Like, this looks like just a build. It looks like it would be purely decorative, but the fact that it actually functions is incredibly exciting to me. If I just press this button here, you can see our little platform makes its way along, and it is entirely controlled by chains. The only real redstone components that you see, other than obviously at the top and bottom, are the chains. This is actually a chain-powered piston elevator. So as you can see, it gets to the top and then everything closes up. There's still no redstone components on display, so you can have this either stuck at the top or the bottom. Either way, it will look good. And then if I just head down to the bottom again and press the button, you can see everything flips around and our little platform will make its way down to the bottom. Now, I will say it's not the fastest elevator in the world. You know, this is this is probably one of the slowest elevators on the planet, and that's because of the way it's built. You know, it is what it is. But I would say it is worth it for the style points alone. And actually, on the topic of style points, I did manage to stay within this 6 wide little area that I created. The original footprint that I set out when I first built the top section. I managed to stay within it. It was tricky at times, but I've done it. This thing could be made significantly faster if we weren't using double piston extenders in the piston feed tape, if I was okay with having pistons on the outside, and also if I reworked the top section, but that would make the whole thing bigger. I guess not necessarily bigger, just more complicated. So I, for one, am absolutely chuffed to bits with this design. I think it's awesome. I think it's really fun to watch, even when you're not riding the elevator. I just think it's one of those things I just want to activate and look at, and that's always the sign of a very good redstone contraption. Right, okay, now we need to build it on the Hermitcraft server, and that That makes me slightly nervous. So I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to do something else very quickly. As I mentioned in the previous Hermitcraft episode, I have bought an apartment of Iskall, which, I mean, firstly, I don't even know how that came about. I really don't. He's a good salesman. He just convinced me. Secondly, I'm not even sure it's legal. I know there were no permits created for apartments on the Hermitcraft server. Nobody expected them to be for sale. But still, technically, Iskall is selling things without a permit. So if everything goes wrong down the line and my investments don't turn out, then maybe I will just throw that at him. Anyway, here we go. Here is my apartment that I am gradually furnishing. And I am just going to... Yeah. Okay, I've now got a table. Has he noticed yet? I mean, I don't know, he has got, like, a bionic eye, right? Like, he's got hardware that helps him with this sort of thing, so if he doesn't spot it, then maybe he needs to return it. I mean, it's getting pretty noticeable. Oh, see, other people do have furniture. Oh, I like that, actually. That is a cool building tip. The hanging signs as a fence, that is gorgeous. Oh, I'm definitely going to pinch that. And the azalea pot. Oh, this is wicked. This is really nice. Oh my goodness, that is precarious. Okay, fine, I'll build my redstone contraption. All right, first things first, it is always resource gathering mission. We are going to need a bunch of this stuff and a bunch of other random components. Gosh, I cannot wait until I fill up all of the shops up there with my storage system so that I don't have to deal with whatever this is. We are gradually getting there despite my disorganization. Is that even a word? Can someone please inform me? I'm sure you already have. I probably say this every time I use them, but blast furnaces are expensive, aren't they? They're too expensive. Of course, smokers are expensive as well, aren't they? Goodness gracious me. All right, that should be everything all gathered. That should be everything that I need to build this thing. Now I just need to make sure that the space is safe. Which, oh my goodness, I actually lit this area up. I was fully expecting this to be a complete mob zone. Look at me being a good little Minecrafter. Look at me thinking ahead. I mean, sure, there are some areas that are still very dark and very mobby. Yeah, there we go. Oh, Willie's Woodyard. I think I deserve that, actually. I think I firmly deserve that. Oh, no, I didn't deserve that. I didn't deserve that. That was unjustified, I think. It's all gone a bit too far now. With Willie's now repaired and the entire area lit up, it's time to build our elevator. And this was a fairly painless experience because I used Lightmatica in this example. As you know, I am not someone that uses Lightmatica too often, and if I do use it, I am absolutely sure to be very upfront about it. And this is one of those redstone contraptions that just has a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong, and if I was switching back and forth between worlds or screenshots, I just feel like I would have been in integration hell for a very long time with this one, so I thought I would just put the ghost outline on the Hermitcraft server and build from that, and everything went fairly well up until the very end, and then the double piston extender down the bottom wasn't working. And I think this is actually a directional thing. You see, back in the day, when I used to make redstone tutorials in the early days, you would have to be very aware of the direction of your redstone contraptions because some things only worked in certain orientations. So at the start of the video, you'd have to say, this is a 3x3 piston door that works north to south. Do not build this if your door is facing east or west. So I think that happened with this design. We were getting some quasi-connectivity going on. I swapped out some of the blocks for transparent blocks, then all of the bottom double piston extenders were working, and everything is functioning properly and looking rather fantastic. In a very redstone-y sense, we have still got an awful lot of decorating to do. I mean, it's such a weird collision of worlds. We've got this enchanted forest with all sorts of mushrooms and details and things, and then this, which, with those, literally looks like something from a horror film. But I guess I should quickly show you it all working, so press the button, and there we go. Our little platform makes its way upwards incredibly quickly. It's basically breaking the sound barrier here. There we go, up at the top in no time at all, and then if I hit the button again, everything goes back down to the bottom. Everything is working properly. It's a cool machine. Again, this is kind of like a weird form of decoration because this is one of those things that I will use every now and again, but realistically, it is going to be decorative. I didn't really have to make it function, but I would feel pretty stupid making just a decorative elevator. I know I've become a bit of a builder recently, and I've been working on my building and things, but if I chose not to do the redstone for an elevator and just did a fake elevator, that's too far. Okay, that's way too far. This thing had to work. Okay, so let's swap out all of our redstone supplies for wooden and nice building block supplies. Okay, this was me trying to work out why my double piston extenders weren't working. So let's get our floor reinstalled. I guess that's a fairly important detail. This is going to be our platform. I actually do think I am going to use copper. I kind of like the idea of it slightly contrasting with everything else in the build. And then we got the spruce and the dark wood stairs. That is looking cool, and then the rest of the build is going to be fairly wooden. And that includes barrels, which I am actually going to place them like this because I like to imagine that these are almost runners. Like, this is what the elevator is going along. You've almost got the chains that are pulling the elevator up, but they're being guided on these rails. And my goodness, I don't know why. I feel like I can never place barrels in the correct orientation. What do I have to do? Is it this? Yep, so just to be clear, barrels you place like pistons, but logs you place like logs. Even though barrels are very loggy. Okay, got it. I'm glad we cleared that up. Just in case anyone was confused about how barrels worked, what, like 10 years after they were added into the game? Alright, up we go with all of the spruce logs and things. We've got a small gradient going on here. And I've added in all the different types of furnaces. I've got a few of the different wall types in there as well. Things are beginning to come together. This is looking really cool. How does it look from a distance? It looks cool. It's really nice having it peek through the plants. I think that's really interesting. Enderman jump scare. It's always nerve-wracking activating a build that you've done some work on. Looks like it's still working though, which is good. Let's mess up these chains a little bit. Replace these bottom chains with deep slate blocks, so then it makes it solid when this thing's up at the top. That's looking good. I guess now I just have to blend it in with the rest of the mountainside and then do the top, and it's all complete. And it is now all complete. And I gotta say, considering how redstoney this build actually is, like considering how much actually goes on with this, the fact that it is fitting in with our forest so nicely, I would say is a big win. Now, one thing that I have realized is that so far I haven't actually ridden this elevator. I mean, look, it definitely works. But equally, I'm still nervous that it's somehow not going to work. But here we go. This is me moving up at great velocity. I mean, yeah, speed is not the strong suit of this elevator, but in terms of actual builds, this is by far the coolest elevator I've ever created. Look, here we are up on the level. This is how Big Rons and Willies, this is how they get to work. I don't know why I use plurals for them, but I do like the idea. Well, I guess Willies, actually, there's Willie Jr. and Willie Sr., so there are Willies. But Big Rons, I like the idea that there's just two Big Rons who work there. To be fair, Big Ron is the sort of guy that would only hire someone else called Ron. There's no other requirements for the job. You just need to be big and called Ron. Anyway, this build is done. It is in place. I am so happy with this. This has combined a bunch of things for me. I've got a cool redstone build that involved some interesting problem solving. I had to work a lot of things out, whilst also being a fun building project. I mean, this is cool. And I've done a bunch of terraforming today. I've basically like ticked off all the different areas of Minecraft construction in one episode. All I need to do is just build a farm or something, and then I would have done basically everything that you can possibly do in Minecraft. God, it looks cool from here as well. Nice. Okay, successful Hermitcraft episode. I am absolutely chuffed to bits with this. Wait a second. Have my structural chickens died?